Hello everybody, Jake here for FMSCOUT, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys the best way to master the transfer window in FM21. This is coming from my own experience and synthesizing a lot of ideas from different Football Manager YouTubers that I've all watched for inspiration, and hopefully this video will help especially for newer players in learning how to manage a transfer window successfully. But also, if you are experienced in the game, there is going to be a special tip in this video about selling players that I think is really useful, so make sure you stick around and see that bit out. But before we get into today's video, I'd just like to ask you guys, if you do enjoy it or get any use out of it, or you're just feeling really nice, then feel free to hit that like button. It really helps push these videos out to more people and helps with how the videos perform overall too. And if you have any tips of your own on how you guys do the transfer windows, let me know in the comments. Obviously it's going to help everyone out when they see the comments down below, and it's always nice to hear from you guys too. And finally, if you haven't already, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. We've recently surpassed 100,000 subscribers, but we're not going to stop there. So the next target is 102,000, I believe. We're on midway through 101,000, so if we can get to 102,000, that'll be brilliant. Step by step, we're going to keep building this channel up. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. So here we are, guys, within Football Manager 21, and you can see we are managing Crystal Palace. None of these tactics are specific for Crystal Palace, but I'm just going to use these as an example on how you guys might manage a transfer window. Now obviously there are going to be a few differences depending on whether you're in the Premier League or, you know, 4 divisions down. Obviously the budgets are going to be smaller, but the same rules will apply and will help you guys build a successful squad within the transfer window. Now, if you want to watch me in more detail manage a club like this, then you can see on my channel, which will be linked in the description, me managing Chelsea. If you want to check that out, feel free. Any support is greatly appreciated. But the first tip I'm going to say, which is quite an obvious one, but a lot of people really don't do this, and you'll be surprised by how many don't, is start the transfer window early. Now, what I mean by this is the transfer window, while it is usually a 2-month, 1-month thing, whatever it is, where you can actually buy and sell players, you can always pre-arrange deals, you can always be scouting, you can always be identifying new players that you might need in your club throughout. Don't wait until the transfer window, because by then, by the time you've actually found the player you want, it could be too late. So you've got to always address your squad. If you realise halfway through your season that, oh, my right backs aren't performing very well, then start scouting, because the last thing you want is to leave it too late and then you lose a player out. Now, for example, in my Chelsea save, I pre-arranged a deal with Milinkovic-Savic. Ended up getting him for a lot cheaper than I would have done in the transfer window too, just because I showed significant interest throughout the season, kept an eye on him, and eventually was able to get him when his price was at its lowest by continually scouting him. So that is obviously a very basic tip, but it's one I thought we should start with because a lot of people really don't do this. So always keep an eye out for players that could potentially benefit your squad in the coming seasons when the transfer window does eventually arrive. So obviously you want to start early, but what do you do to your squad? How do you know who to buy? How do you start going about buying the correct players and the right players that fit the mould for your team? Well, firstly, I think a good idea that everyone should do is to adjust your budget. And you can see it used to be around here. I think you can still do it, yeah. You can see here Crystal Palace are doing quite well for themselves, have £22 million and £40,000 in the bank for the wage budget. Now, realistically here, I'm thinking we should adjust some of this. You can see it's quite far over into the transfer budget area. But if we're bringing in some players that are going to cost, let's say, £10–15 million, the likelihood is we will exceed that wage budget, so we need to assign some more money to wages. So straight away, just get it up to a nice balance. I would say I'd be happy with this, having around 150 grand a week to spend on wage budget and having a little bit less in the transfer budget. This will hopefully stop you guys going overboard and going too far one way, running out of transfer budget or running out of wage budget before you've even properly looked at it. Now again, I know that is quite a basic tip, but stick with me. Things will get more complicated as we go along, but obviously this is the start of stuff. And if we just went straight into transfers without looking at your budgets, you'd obviously be going about the transfer window in a wrong way. Then you should check out your club vision. Obviously, I'm sure you'll already know what you plan to do with a club in terms of whether you want to win a league, avoid relegation, that kind of thing. But you can see here, there is usually some transfer specific visions and club cultures that you should keep an eye out for. For example, we can see here that Crystal Palace preferably would like to sign players under the age of 23, so we're going to be looking at more young players, and that is preferred. So something that if you weren't doing a particularly good job at Crystal Palace, this could possibly tip the balance in whether you get sacked or keep your job. So always keep an eye out for these things if you can, and obviously they want to sign players to sell for a profit. So the idea is we want to sign players when they're young, and then eventually when they develop, sell them on. So that is the kind of players we're going to be looking at in this transfer window. And you should always keep an eye out for these things. For example, I know Wolves have one where you have to sign Portuguese players or something like that. So always keep an eye out. And then you can move into assessing your squad and who you need for your squad. So we've decided that we want to play a 4-4-2 with Crystal Palace. Now if we go to team report and a squad depth, we can try and identify what we might need to improve our team. Now straight away, looking at this, we can see Zaha is definitely our best player across most positions. Let's say we play him as a left winger, have Koyate and Milojevic. I've messed the pronunciation of that up, I'm not even going to try. MacArthur and Eze offer us some good options. In the central midfield, although from what I know, MacArthur's quite defensive. Milojevic, again pronounced it wrong, is quite defensive, as is Koyate, so maybe we can look at a more attacking central midfielder. I'm sure Schlupp and Townsend are good options on either wing, and maybe we might need a new striker because Batshuayi is in on loan, Zaha's been used in a different position, Benteke's not the best anymore, neither is Ayew. So let's say for this transfer window we want to identify a quick striker and maybe a central midfielder with a bit more attacking quality than some of the other central midfielders we have. So that's what we want to look for in this transfer window. However, I would always suggest, and this is just personal preference, but you guys can do it too, that you should always analyse players' contract situations before you go ahead and make transfers for your team. For example, if we look at Crystal Palace's squad here, obviously we can sort by rating, but we want to check how long all these players have left on their contract. So we can see here that we can see all the expiry dates of the Crystal Palace players. So if we order this by expiry date first, we can see Nathaniel Klein's contract is expiring quite soon. Now we can probably say we'll judge that another time and not have to worry about that too much, but we can see straight away that Patrick van Arneholt's contract is running out at the end of this season. Now this is a player who has been crucial for Crystal Palace in recent seasons, would probably still be crucial for you unless you signed a backup player. So I think here we need to straight away, before we worry about buying people and seeing our budgets then, we need to tie down our better players. So Van Arneholt there, we've gone and tied him down to a new deal, which didn't cost too much extra. In terms of his wage, only £5,000 extra a week. Not that big of a deal to sign one of our better players down on the long run, and now we can go and try and actually sign and sell some players. If you are looking quite light in the transfer budget department, there's always a good idea to go to transfer clauses. Here you can see if you can just quickly get some funds in by looking at some clauses we can sell off. For example here, 10% of the profit made on Aaron Wan-Bissaka's next transfer will be owed to Crystal Palace. So he was signed for £45 million by Manchester United. Let's say he does really well and eventually moves on for £60 million. That's £15 million profit. 10% of that goes to us, which is 1.5 million. If I've done the maths right, I probably haven't. But you can see here we get 5 million just from selling this clause, which is way more than we think we'll get if Manchester United do ever sell Wan-Bissaka for a profit. So if we sell that, we've instantly had £5 million added to our transfer budget, which is quite a lot and actually quite a significant one. You don't find them that high usually, but that will help us in the transfer window, and now we can officially get to buying and selling players. Now to anyone who rated round, thank you. I'm going to show you the selling tip now that I hope, we'll start with selling players. I hope this tip will basically revolutionise the way you sell players on the game. Maybe you've already been doing it, but I didn't know about this until I saw it in a Lelujo video. Credit to him, he's one of my favourite Football Manager YouTubers to watch, and he suggested this tip, which I thought I'd have to tell you guys. If we're synthesising everything about transfer windows in one place, I've got to include this tip. So it's selling players using this special kind of tactic. So let's start off with someone who actually has some interest, so I can show you this tip in the best way possible. Okay, this is useful. Here we go. Milojevic has got offers from quite a few different clubs. He's interested from a lot of different clubs. He could be the one that we try this with. I've tried this with a few players now and it hasn't worked because there's not enough interest, but hopefully it works with this guy. Sometimes it won't work like this, but if you can find a player who is interested by multiple clubs, this is definitely the best way to sell them. So you choose the best offer. We can see £10 million is the best offer here. Go on to his transfer, offer to clubs. We can see, what did we accept? Around £10 million. So we're going to up it now to 12 million, let's say. You hit this button here to lock the fee in, get rid of the selling team wage contribution, offer to clubs, and then as soon as you advance, if these other teams are going to buy and start a bidding war, they will do it straight away. Here we go. We've gone and got DL Pro offering £12 million. So before we accept that, we want to go to transfers, view all of the transfer offers that have been put in for him. We can see £10 million was the one we previously accepted. Now we get rid of that, accept DL Pro's offer of 12 million, hope that Shenzhen are still interested, which they are. This is good news, and then we offer a little bit more. And this bidding war kind of style can often help with selling them kind of deadwood players that you want to get rid of from your squad. So we're going to try it now. Hopefully when we advance straight away, we're going to decline this. Obviously you wouldn't sell Milojevic, he's getting very annoyed with it, but we're not going into that much detail, so we're just going to advance and see if the other clubs bite at that amount. We can see that realistically, as no other club has made an offer for him just yet, it's probably likely that no one else is here to make a bid for him. So what you can do then is lower the bid, maybe down to 13 instead of 13.5. We'll put that as the asking price. Oh, not buyback price. We'll try again. If it doesn't work, then that just might be what we sell him for, which isn't the best really for Milivojevic. But again, he's a player that you wouldn't really want to sell. It doesn't seem like anyone's going to bite. Obviously, you won't be expecting instant results most of the time. You'll have a bit of time to do this as you progress within your save, but quite often you can already see the bidding war kind of happen with DL Pro. If you can keep that going, which it just snowballs and snowballs, you can often get way more for a player than you would before. Unfortunately, these Crystal Palace players didn't do the best job of demonstrating it because no one seemed to want to bid for them, but I promise you it does happen. I've used it, and if you want to see the tactic in more detail and a bit more successfully too, then there is a video on Alujo's channel which explains it perfectly. And now we're going to move on to buying players, which is my favourite part and many people's favourite part of the game. So we knew that what we were looking for, a striker and an attacking midfielder for Crystal Palace. We can see we've been given lots of scout reports here. We're not going to look at that too much. One button that I want to direct you towards is the Request Director of Football suggestions. I've often skipped past this. Even if you don't have a Director of Football, you can still do this, and what this means is, say the end of a transfer window, you don't have too much time to scout, you can get some quick recommendations. So if we go to striker, centre, as a pressing forward and suggest, we'll get 3, hopefully, pressing forwards suggested to us. It could be good for the club. Now, I'm not too interested in any of these, but it's always good to check it out, and we wanted a midfielder who, let's say an advanced playmaker, someone with a bit more of an attacking talent. If we suggest that, we can see we're being offered these guys, who again we aren't exactly interested in, but if we wanted to go for this guy, he looks quite good. Interested by West Ham, which is probably the kind of calibre of team we're competing with, so you can see the Director of Football does pull in some good suggestions, although in this case this guy isn't the best Director of Football, so it's not too beneficial for us, but again it's always something good to look at before you start going around and searching for ages when in reality the best player could be right under your noses in a few button clicks. Now my transfers usually revolve around the idea of investment rather than straight talent, so I like to buy young, sell high, which kind of fits into Crystal Palace's idea of what they want for their team. But that's something you should always think about, because if you're playing a long-term save, often bringing in their money in the long run is better than just buying, say, a 29-year-old Milivojevic. Whatever clubs are coming in for him, he might not actually be that useful to, let's say, Valencia. Valencia might be better off buying a slightly worse player at the age of, say, 21, 22, who can develop and they can eventually sell on. So it's been a few days. We've scouted out 4 potential pressing forwards for our club that have been suggested through Director of Football, through player searching and through scouting. Now obviously if you don't have any transfer budget, then a loan might be the best option, but we are Crystal Palace, we have a bit of money to spend, so we are going to spend it. If you're interested in why we've now got £42 million, Jairo Rijdervold and Luka Moya have been sold for around £20 million combined, and that has given us a bit more money to spend, but we're basically going to assume, like before, we only have around £20 million. So, assessing these targets, we need to decide who is best, which one should we bring in, and who best suits our club. Now remember, we were asked to bring in under 23 players that we can sign and sell for a profit. Therefore, I'm going to rule out Chris Wood quite instantly because he's lower recommendation than all the others. One of the most expensive players on the list is 28 and doesn't really fit the pressing forward mould. He's more of a target man, so we're going to get rid of him from the list. And now the next player who we've been recommended is significantly lower than the other 2 recommendations. It's Nicolas Gonzalez. Is he good for the club? Do we want to judge him? Do we want to go buy him? It seems he'd be maybe a bit cheaper than some of the others, but his finishing doesn't look great. His work rate doesn't look the best. He might be another mediocre kind of striker, and we don't need that. We want someone who's going to lead the line for us and take the pressure off of Zaha of being like the star man for the club. Which leads us to 2 other options, Morelos and Edouard. Now straight away we're looking at Edouard and thinking under 23 just about would help with the quota of signing certain players, but his value is a lot higher, and looking at him, who's interested in him? Arsenal, Wolves, Dortmund and Sevilla. We realistically don't want to waste our time chasing this guy for 2 months only to not be able to get him, so I'm thinking maybe we leave this guy and focus on Morelos, because again it's all about balancing things up, not being greedy, not going okay, he's the most expensive, he's got to be the best. We don't want to waste all our money on one player who again we might not even get just because he fills a little bit of a quota. So straight away I'm looking at Morelos as the best option up front. He's a hard worker, he's aggressive, he finishes well, he's a pressing forward, and he isn't going to cost too much from Rangers by the looks of it. So then we go to ask agent about availability and see that we could probably get him within our budget for around £18 million. Would only want wages of around 57 grand a week, which wouldn't be too bad either. And he also wants us to allow him to treat the club as a stepping stone, which is kind of good because that means it's someone we can sell on for profit in a few years when he's ready to leave. So I think Morelos will be a very good player for our club, and then we go and sign a midfielder, and I'd say we've had a pretty good window. We've identified what we wanted, hopefully sell some deadwood. Obviously we wouldn't really have sold the players that we did sell. If we were managing Crystal Palace, we likely would have sold them 32, 33-year-olds who are not going to keep their contracts going. For example, Nathaniel Klein, we would try and sell him, bring some money in for the club, so we would have sold well, bought well, brought in some money through transfer clauses, assessed what we need for the squad going forward, signed contracts, we've sorted the transfer window out, and I would say that would be a perfect transfer window. Again, if you want to see the selling tactic work more successfully than it did for me, unfortunately, then Lelujo has got a great video on it. So I hope today's video has been useful for you, and even if you're a more experienced player, hopefully that selling tactic came in handy, or maybe some of the other tips too. For example, the director of football suggestions one I know is something that quite a lot of people overlook. But if you're more of a beginner, then try and follow these steps, and hopefully your transfer windows will go a bit more successfully, whether you're managing a lowly team or a quite high up team like Crystal Palace. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye.